My name is Gary van Breda, and I'm the Director of Global Food Safety for McDonald's Corporation. My responsibility lies primarily in the food safety realm of food as well as packaging. Of course, from a food safety perspective, we manage food safety across from farm to the counter of the restaurant. My responsibility begins at the farm in setting expectation of how food safety technologies are applied, how they are related back to the end product, from farm all the way through to our primary suppliers and also through our distribution network to McDonald's distribution network and then finally to the restaurant. So from a global perspective, being able to trace back as fast as possible is the number one priority for us. We don't want to be in a situation where we are dealing with crises all the time, but they happen. They happen, and we have to be able to respond to that very fast. At McDonald's, we have an expectation that when we do need to trace back and recall or withdraw a product, that our suppliers are able to do that within a 3-hour period. And we're talking about 100% of the production that was produced during that batch or lot. Our requirement for suppliers, in addition to 3-hour traceability exercises, one up and one down, is that our suppliers have to be in a position where they are able to know and understand and trace back to the original ingredient or one step up to the restaurant within a 24-hour period. Our approach to traceability is both global as well as local. For supplies that are globally in nature, we expect to have a methodology, a traceability methodology that is common and standardized so that we can follow it from a corporate perspective as well. However, we do have local suppliers, and those suppliers can be as granular as being supplying just to a certain area of the world, a certain zip code, for example. And in those situations, we do expect that those suppliers have enough knowledge and enough information in those lot codes that they can make decisions on the local level. Compliance or conformance to the expectation is about bringing people together with process. What that means for us is that the adequacy of training has to be evaluated. So we do spend a lot of time working with our auditors to ensure that the evaluation of that competency at an operator level is consistent with our expectations. We've got to be in a position where, number one, we've got to have technology that we can get results faster. The days of waiting for 24 hours or 72 hours, those are past. The new technology is responding within hours. A couple hours is all it takes for information to become transparent or to go viral around the world. So we have to be able to respond to information very quickly. And so from a industry perspective, from a service provider perspective, we are asking our support structures to be able to really look deep into what type of technologies are there. How can we test for both chemistries at the parts per million or parts per billion level, parts per trillion level, and respond really quickly to those results. Microbiology obviously is a little different, but I think there are so many good technologies that we're beginning to see. Metagenomics, for example, is the one that's coming to mind. And how can we use that to be more predictive in nature? The other part is around responding more around social change. We know from a global perspective that socioeconomics are changing. Socio-political events are becoming more apparent, and they are changing the way in which farmers, suppliers are doing business around the world. And then, of course, there's climate change, which I believe is also a big contributing factor to some of the food safety incidents that we have seen, and that has been really difficult to establish root cause on. So the question becomes, how do we now think about the predictive nature of taking all these data points and being able to make predictive conclusions? As the consumer demands food that's clean, as they demand food that is a lot more transparent, there's a need, and there is becoming more and more of a need to be able to have our consumers go in and understand where the food is coming from. Certainly for us, the consumers are demanding foods that have fewer preservatives, fewer colors, artificial colors. The removal of artificial preservatives as well as artificial colors creates its own unique challenges. Preservatives, for example, are there to ensure that you don't have proliferation of spoilage organisms, for example. So removal of it, although it doesn't create an additional food safety issue, it does create a problem around how do we ensure that the processes are managed in a way that will reduce both the food safety as well as the quality microbiological challenges. We also realize that this is not something that we can solve for in a vacuum. So at McDonald's we have the three-legged stool. The three-legged stool includes our suppliers as well as our franchisees and of course the corporation. All three of those parties are actively looking at ways of solving for the unique challenges associated with the removal of artificial preservatives and artificial colors. I think that by solving for those issues, by default, we will also be solving for food safety issues. The issues around cleanliness, pest management, preventive maintenance, the way in which the facilities, the food factory facilities are designed. These are all issues that are coming to the forefront, and we're challenging those in a very unique way. From a corporate perspective, it's about engagement. We know that we can't do this alone, that there are active partners that can help to change culture around the world. Regulators are one, government agencies are becoming more actively engaged, I think, within the food safety space. Not only are they actively engaged on a local level within their countries, but there's a lot more information sharing across the different countries, which I think is great to begin to make that social change from a food safety perspective. So I believe that in time, we are going to actively involve both NGOs and people. You're looking at unions, for example, in certain parts of the world, advocacy groups that we also will in time begin to involve in determining how food safety culture moves from one that's more reactive to one that's a little bit more proactive. Everyone's trying to figure out, what does food safety culture mean? And I think that if you first ask the question, it's almost like you're trying to reinvent food safety culture, the definition of it. But the reality is that everybody has a food safety culture. It's just about determining what are the parameters that you're trying to influence within that food safety culture. Certainly, I think that reactivity is one. Being able to react to a situation when it's already occurred, whereas being able to predict it. That's I think, a shift change in the way in food safety culture. I think engagement of people and empowerment of people is also a way in which the industry is beginning to say, let's do this. Let's see, the person who's doing the work is the person who every day makes the decision that translates into production of a safe food. So how do we engage people who actually have the granular information, who have the information to make the change, and empower them? Not just getting the information, but empowering people who are working to make changes within the organization. The other part of it is related to purposefully allocation of resources being financial resources, but also time associated with leadership. So planning for food safety and relating it back to the purpose of the organization, I think, is also something that is becoming more and more part of the food safety culture. Our journey started with trying to define what it means for McDonald's globally. We are learning from who's best in class. So bringing people together, discovering what it is that they've done, understanding some of the roadblocks and the stumbling points that they've been through, and then learning from that. We're at the point now where we're beginning to say, okay, we've got this information. Now let's design what food safety means for us. We're a big company. Our brand is recognized across the globe. We recognize that that definition may not be the same as somebody who manufactures a specific item. So we're at the point now where we begin to say, what are the parameters? How do we do this? How do we gather our own information from our own people in order to determine where we are along that continuum?